So the meditation should be, we're entering the meditative state in order to make ourselves ready for what we are supposed to be encountering in this session. All right. And as far as the sound from my space coming to you, is the sound okay? Okay. Thanks. All right. So the meditation that we're going to do is now going to be just going to accessing the meditative state, abiding in it, and becoming familiar with it. The more familiar you are with the meditative state, then the more you will be able to make use of it. Remember, as far as Buddhism is concerned, and it's not just Buddhism, but we would say Buddhists make a particular emphasis on this. It's the meditative state is not an end in itself. It's a means, okay? So we are going to access the means to become familiar with it so that when we need to use it, then we can go into it and then use it, okay? So now it's just for the sake of accessing it. And we're going to approach it with a sense that within the first fraction, within the first moment, when we say we are in a meditative state, we have to have a sense of, okay, we have accessed it now. What is it? Where is it? Where is it? So enter into the meditation with that state of frame of mind, a sense of curiosity. Okay, it is here. Where is it? What is going on here that is different than what was happening right before, that I can now call this meditation and the one before not meditation? Approach it with that curiosity. A few setting up. First, the conscious intention to enter meditation. A clear understanding as to what meditation means, what is meditation. Bring that to the forefront of awareness. And a deliberate motivation. Why are we entering the meditative state? Why are you entering the meditative state? Hold this within conscious awareness. And by simply holding this, we are communicating to the entirety of all the components that make up us. Let it be communicated to the biology of us, to the energy of us, to the mentality of us, the emotion of us, the psychology of us. And this is meditative state is access through a participation of all these different parts. So they too have to, in their own way, enter into something that they, in their own way, refers to as meditation. And let yourself now begin to touch the subtleties that are already arising. The subtlety of the body cooperating, the biology cooperating, the energetic field cooperating, the personal energy cooperating, the different aspects of mentality cooperating. And it's not to get them in line, but to be sensitive to their cooperation and allow that cooperation to take place. And understanding even the parts of us that are fearful, they are doing their job, they're doing what we have conditioned them to do. Let us assuage the part that wants to hold the body by giving it a direct perception that the body is taken care of, the body is supported, the body is being held, by bringing attention to the point of contact between your body and your seat. Be aware of the sense of support, the sense of stability the earth itself is providing. with that direct perception, that part that wants to hold the body can be at ease. It can let the body go. Now consciously, deliberately, cooperatively, let the body go. Let it be held by the earth. And by doing that, notice a calm slowly enhancing in the body itself. Bring attention to it, bring awareness to it, celebrate it, welcome it, rejoice in it. And however you're aware of the body, that is exactly what should be happening right here, right now. Do not enter with a prejudice. I am light, I'm not light, I'm energy, I'm not energy, I am this, I'm that. This is this, this is that. Let whatever is, let it present itself to you as it is. Having given yourself a direct experience that the body is supported, that the body is being held, having through that directly experience a sense of calm arising in the body in a palpable way. Now look for this touch, this experience in the different parts in the body that are exhibiting, that are experiencing it. And you do this with a scanning in the legs, and welcoming these signs with rejoicing. Now the torso, the hips, the abdomen, the chest, the back, the spine, the shoulders and arms and fingers. And invite you to draw attention to the energetic experience that is taking place in whatever measure that you're experiencing it. And if there is no measure of anything that you can say, this is energetic, don't worry about it. Just in case if it's there, bring awareness to it also. You want to gradually direct attention more and more towards the more subtle, the more subtle, the more subtle. Bring attention to the head and neck. Let that intelligence in the body guide you. Just hold the intention to enter meditation and let that intelligence guide you. And notice how, by following and applying the guidance of this intelligence, the signs enhance. And celebrate any measure of any of the signs that you experience as an enhancement. Mouth, teeth, tongue. Eyes. Think natural. Think resting. Now time for consciously entering into the meditative state. We are now at the threshold, and we are sort of tasting what the meditative state could be like. And we're going to make the commitment to fully enter. And that commitment will be through a deep breath, in through the nose and out the mouth. And as you breathe out the mouth, think that you are completely releasing yourself, completely surrendering yourself to the meditative state by noticing the signs and staying aware of them. If it feels like you're hearing them, stay continuously hearing it and let the hearing lead you to something else. If it's a tactile sensation, stay feeling that tactile sensation. If it's a vision, keep that in the direction of vision. So get ready. Have that sense of commitment to fully enter. And know in a split moment, you will have a complete experience of something profound. No expectation of what it's supposed to be like. Just have an idea, a readiness to be aware of it. Okay, take that commitment breath in through the nose. And now let go. Let yourself drop, let yourself drop, let yourself drop. Leave the breath alone and just keep in that momentum of dropping deeper and deeper, or higher and higher, or more and more into that sensation, the calm, the pleasantness, the clarity, the radiance, the focus. And if you were aware of the energetic feel of it, notice the strengthening of that sensation. If there was no energetic feeling before, maybe now there is some energetic feeling. And if there isn't right now, whatever is present, whatever that was subtle, that is now obvious, stay aware of it, stay connected to it. It's the rope taking you deeper. Perhaps there was a release of micro tension in the shoulders, in the hips. There could have been some muscle that you were not even aware that you were holding tension in. And now you are palpably aware that the tension is released. And by the release of the tension, simultaneously a deepening of the signs. So welcome that, rejoice in that, encourage that. If you're aware of biological happenings, the heart beating, the actual physical feel of the lungs, the blood circulating, the air circulating. All these are subtle phenomena. Now that you are, because your mind is subtle, now you're able to be aware of them. So rejoice in that, celebrate that. And just continue to be curious about the subtle, without expectation, without rejecting the non-subtle. Continuously staying aware of this measure that you have reached. Make a deliberate intention now to deepen it with threefold breath. As before, in through the nose and completely surrender and let go as you breathe out through the mouth. And stay in the depth as you take the next inhalation and allowing the inhalation to come back all by itself without forcing it. There might be a slight pause, allow it. The pause might be a bit long, allow it. Whatever is naturally taking place, allow and just observe and keep celebrating, rejoicing, and noticing enhancements in the signs. Okay, the first breath, 3 in through the nose, staying where you've reached. The second one. The last. And then whatever you can, when you come back to the breath, just keep that attitude. This time, breathing in through the nose. And if you naturally want to breathe out through the mouth or even reverse it, whatever comes naturally for you for the breath, follow it, but keep the sense of dropping deeper. Keep hearing, keep seeing, keep touching, keep whatever sense that is appearing to you as a sense of being in a meditative state and going deeper into it, and keep that beautiful curiosity. In whatever way you feel you make contact, stay connected. And whatever is arising, let it. Let the sound get more intense, louder. Let the visions get clearer, brighter, more vivid. Let the sense of touch, what if you're connected to a sense of touch? Let it get stronger. And feel the sense of that pulling you deeper into that space. Stay connected to it. And not to allow discursive thinking to be hijacked. Deliberately use it if you feel that it's in danger of being hijacked. So deliberately use it. Describe the experiences that is taking place, or be in the ready to describe the experiences that are taking place, the subtle experiences. I feel like I'm about to see light, but I don't see light. It feels like I'm about to see light. I'm hearing the sound. I'm feeling the sensation. The sensation is taking me deeper. So in that way, use discursive thinking. If you feel discursive thinking will be hijacked and take you out of the experience. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, consider it to be a good sign, a sign of your journey. This is not a way just to get to the pleasant. So whatever is going on, have a sense of joy that you're going through the journey. And the part of us that is guiding us, have a deep sense of respect and trust in it. And be grateful to it. And as we hear and listen, may it listen with us. Help us understand. Okay, get ready to come out of the meditation. At first, allow yourself to witness the different signs that you're indeed meditating in some measure, in some level, rejoicing, and make the intention to come out. And with that intention, take a nice deep breath in through the nose, out the mouth, feel and hear it. And with that joyful breath, reconnect with your immediate surroundings, reconnect with your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Okay. I think what makes the topic of self, the topic of identity, which is very essential from the very beginning, which is very essential in the middle, which is very essential at the end, what makes it lose its sort of sense of practicality is that in the search of making it very practical, that we get lost in the what we might call the philosophy of it. And the way to reconnect to the sense of urgency of it, the sense of importance of it, the sense of making it really something that is relevant and applicable in our daily lives, in our day-to-day, hour-to-hour, moment-to-moment lives, is to remember why we got into that search in the first place. Remember why, what is it that you were seeking in the first place that we found ourselves stumbling into this, what seems to be the mystery of all ages, identity, myself. And I know that most of you have probably had some readings or some reflection on identity, trying to figure it out. And at times it seems to be such a mystery that we might become so daunted by it that we think the best thing to do is just give it up. Stop trying to figure this thing out. We'll only end up becoming crazy or becoming so discouraged because it seems to be such an impossible thing to do. And at other times, it seems to be we seem to have cracked it a little bit. We seem to have touched the real meaning. We seem to have touched the answer that we've been looking for. And that gives us encouragement. That gives us hope to continue. But it's not enough to maintain a momentum so that we feel that, okay, now we can actually apply this. And tonight's topic is not just go into some philosophical discourse on what is self, what is not self, but rather specifically the self identity as in terms of opinions. That is, I'll give you a little story. Interestingly enough, a long time ago, and this is and the topic of my identity as something, as a construct, where what the components that making up this construct are my ideas of others' opinions about me. Either I find myself in a rebellion against the opinions that I feel are opinions about who I am, or either consciously or unconsciously, both in either case, whether we are rebelling or whether we are surrendering. It could be conscious or unconscious. So there's a sense of rebelling against that, and there's a sense of trying to accommodate that. This is who they think I am. This is who I should be, and therefore I end up holding an idea. Okay, this is who I am, and this is what I must present as my identity. And this is the idea of identity of self that we are going to tackle, trying to understand tonight. And I am somewhat of a. This is a very important topic for me because you could say it's psychologically something that I struggle with, and I've been struggling with for a long time. And I've known it for consciously. I've known it for a very long time, but consciously knowing it doesn't necessarily help me. I remember I was in grade school, and I was supposed to write an essay about to identify myself, to introduce myself to others. And interestingly enough, and I really wanted to be as truthful as I can with the essay, and I began, and it's very weird that I actually remember that essay, because as far as other things that I've done, I don't remember them at all. And I'm amazed that people can say, oh, I remember such a teacher, and his name was that. I don't remember any of my teacher's name. Okay, and there's a psychological reason for that, but we're not going to go into it. But for some reason, I remembered that. I remembered how I began that essay, because it's a topic that was very important to me. And I wanted to go into it as truthfully as I could, not just for the sake of the grade or for the sake of the teacher, but I really wanted to go into this for myself, to really find out. And the way I began the essay was, I am what I see in the eyes of others. And it shocked me that I actually began the essay that way. And it's not something that has left me, that I left in grade school, that I somehow, I can't say that somehow that I had this marvelous revelation and now I am free of that. I'm still stuck in it. And every once in a while, I'm noticing that, wait a minute, this identity that I'm holding onto, this identity that I feel is intrinsic to who I am, it's actually an idea of what I think others think of who I'm supposed to be. And that's, I have to say, it's a very sad thing. So how much of our identity is really just opinions of others, or rather what we take in as ideas of who we're supposed to be from others, or who we accept as an identity that is constructed from others. So I'm not going to go into too much, and I don't want to go too much into philosophy about this thing, because this is where I can quote Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and Gyaltsab J, Keduk J, and all those kinds of people, and go to the burn go into the different sect, go into, and we will end up, and I think that's the danger when we don't go into those texts, into those references as a way of dealing with very, very immediate, needs that we have, but rather we get lost in them, and then we end up where this very, very important thing, very important search becomes just abstract. It falls into the realm of abstract, and you don't want this to fall into the realm of abstract. And unfortunately, in the process of that search, we find ourselves falling a lot into the realm of abstract, where we can find ourselves, and it's very dangerously, very arrogantly being able to quote so and so and describing the self, and it has no real meaning for us, but it's just something that we feel at ease with. We feel a sense of security in being able to quote, being able to say things that so-called famous people, people who a certain group that we belong to, that we associate with, consider to be authorities on the subject, and being able to quote them gives us a sense of security, and at the same time probably hiding the truth about that we are still running away from encountering this in a direct way. Okay. So the approach is the self. When we think of the self, what do we feel when we think of self? When we think of me, when you call your name to yourself, what feeling comes? And this feeling is going to be simultaneously have a sense of a certainty to it, and at the same time has a sense of being completely vague, complete uncertainty. And it's the simultaneity of those two things that comes up. And then with the dualistic approach, with not a dualistic approach, but rather a dualistic way of being, that we have a sense, there's a discomfort. We want it to be certain. We don't want to be uncertain. And at times we want to surrender, not really surrender, but more of a sense of feeling that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing if we surrender to the sense of uncertainty. And that gives a lot of people a sense of, a sense of security, in the sense that I have solved it. The idea of the aching, the nagging thirst of seeking to arrive at clarity, arriving at some sense of I have answered it. That is satisfied. There's a part of it that is satisfied when we somehow are able to convince ourselves, oh, it's uncertainty, and I'll stick with that. And without really understanding, what does that mean, uncertainty? What does it mean? Do we really accept uncertainty as the identity? And how do we know that we fully accept uncertainty if we are claiming to accept uncertainty as the identity? Do we behave that way? Does it affect our behavior? Does it affect the way we react? That's where the conviction about our identity really makes itself known. It's in the way we react, the way we carry ourselves. What in situations of emergency, so to speak, what do we grab onto instinctively? That determines where our conviction about our identity, where it lies. Okay. Now, when we are looking at identity, remember there is just like we were doing the meditation, there are two kinds of approach, you could say, that sort of they switch places. One approach is whatever I'm encountering, I'm open to it. And there's also the approach, and the approach is, I know what it is, and that's what I'm looking for. Until that comes up, I will not be satisfied. Okay. Now, if we have this vague idea of, oh yeah, uncertainty, that's what it is. And when we approach it that way, then we have this superficial idea of uncertainty, and we say, oh yeah, that's it, I found it. Yeah, it's uncertain. It's uncertain. But it's at the deep level. There's a certainty. There's another certainty. Okay. So with the approach of whatever it is, the approach of openness, whatever it is, it will present itself to me, and that's what I will accept. Okay. With that approach, we can have we have taste of the certainty, okay, of what it is, because we're no longer forcing an idea onto the experience, but rather allowing the experience to convey to us its nature, to convey to us what message it wants to convey that we are asking for. Okay, it's like interrogating someone, and then there is one answer that you're convinced this is the answer you want from this person. Until this person gives you that answer, you'll continue to investigate. You will continue to interrogate. Okay, and that's what we do with the self. We interrogate it, and sometimes we are open, and this happens at the microsecond, and then we have there's a sense of certainty of knowing. And with this sense of the certainty of knowing is here. And that's why we struggle with it. It is a construct. We do come to a sense of certainty, even though it lasts for a fraction of a moment, that the self is a construct. But as soon as we say the self is a construct, we throw that openness away, and now we make construct into something definite. So does that mean, how do we accept this? Does that mean when we say the self is a construct, and it seems to be something that we would like to accept, something within us, there's an innate wisdom within us that is more or less seduced by this idea that the self is a construct? I mean, just saying it itself sounds very sexy, right? The self is a construct. It seems so it seems like you have reached a profound wisdom just being able to say the words, even though we may not have no understanding of exactly what we are talking about. But when we say it, it seems to be a kind of a truth to it. And because we are tasting that truth, we feel that we have an understanding. And we repeat it. The self is a construct, and it feels good to say it. And it feels like we have profound understanding, profound wisdom when we say that. But what are we really saying when we say the self is a construct? And do we fully accept it? Is it something that at the core of our being that we have made a direct perception of, oh yeah, the self is a construct? And we are accepting that, we are convinced in that. And notice what happens when we say the self is a construct. I notice two sort of outcomes from that. The self is a construct. Therefore, it is not the real self. So there is a self that is not a construct. So the self that appears as a construct, I have to get rid of it so I can get to the real self. That's one direction that we may find ourselves going into. And the other direction of the self is a construct is to understand that this is an opportunity for transformation. Okay, this is an opportunity for transformation, because the self that if I'm not entirely crazy, if I am somehow having a clear perception, an unbiased allowing the experiences to convey the truth of what they are to me rather than me imposing a truth on them. If what they're saying is truth, self is a construct, one direction that that I may take is opportunity for transformation. And how do you know if you have fully, if that is a conviction that you have? Do you feel discouraged when you encounter difficulties? Do you feel defeat is around the corner? I mean, defeat in terms of you have an aim of transformation and you feel that, transformation cannot be achieved. Then that tells you you have not really, you don't really believe that the self is a construct. You believe instead that the construct is a false self. And because it is a false self, there is an underlying true self that I've not come in contact with. And that true self is not a construct. Okay. And this is a very difficult thing to have brought ourselves into when we get into there. Because confusingly enough, in some way or another, you could say in each of these directions that we may find ourselves going into, there's an underlying truth. And sorry for that confusion, but it's just the way it is. Okay, so when we go into let me go into the direction where we feel, okay, the self is a construct. That means the self that I am is a false self, and therefore, because it is false, there is a real self that I would like to get in contact with. Okay, and because of that, whatever I am identifying as myself, once in a while, there's a sense of holding onto it, and when it gives us, when we get into trouble because of it, we say, I got into trouble because it wasn't the real self. So let me get rid of that false self. But let's go back to, and then, okay, let's stay there for a little bit. Then we start to imagine, because, you know, that expression, nature hates vacuum. The mind hates a vacuum also. As soon as we say false self, immediately true self comes into play. And then we have to look for it. Okay. And as soon as we say true self, then we don't present any specifics as to what that true self is, then the vacuum will be filled. And we will fill it with incredible stuff. I am energy, I am light, I am bliss. What else? I'm pure consciousness. I'm space. And all these things seems to be beautiful. And what we end up doing is that we are not realizing when we say I am space, I am bliss, I am energy. What we are really looking at, we are only looking at our skewed understanding of what those things are supposed to mean anyway. When we say I am space, with the space that we are saying that I am is merely the construct that they're already made up as to what space is. The bliss that we are saying that we are is merely the construct of what bliss is supposed to, that we have construed of what bliss is supposed to be. That's what we are saying we are. When we say, oh, that true nature of what I'm supposed to be, that's bliss, that's light, that's energy, that's all, any of those things. And we don't see the irony of it. Because whenever we are holding on to the idea of identity, the idea of self, we don't fully understand what's going on. What is going on psychologically? What is going on emotionally? What is going on at the fundamental level? What is actually going on when we say self-identity? And that is something that we need to do. We need to fully understand, as much as we can, what is going on when I'm identifying, whether I'm identifying something here or identifying something there. What is actually going on? What is the mechanism that is going on? Are there expectations? What are the expectations of what is supposed to be, what is supposed to be the end point of this mechanism? What is it looking for when it's going through the process of identification? Okay, what is going on? And until we understand what is going on, no matter what sublime thing you say you are, you have no idea. You have no idea. Okay. And it could be very beautiful. It could be even, as far as actual experience is concerned, it could be truth. It could be the truth. It could be the truth that you're light, but you have no idea what that means to be light. It could be the truth that you're bliss, but you have no idea what it is what it means for an identity to be bliss. So what we are still doing now, we're still holding on to construct, okay, ideas, okay. Now, go into the other direction. And believe it or not, we're gonna tie this up with idea of opinions of self, okay. All right, let's say, just for the sake of the talk and argument, so in order to just go in a direction together without leaving people behind, let's just say, not that is true or not true, okay? Let's just say, for the sake of now, that it is true, that this direction of false self is the wrong direction. When we say I'm a construct, and because the way we understand constructs, we say, oh, that cannot be that cannot be the true self. There's a false self. And the reason for that, okay, the reason for immediately saying construct self equals false self, and it goes back again to what is going on. What is the aim of the very idea of when we are ascribing selfhood to anything, or to me, or to something? What is going on? Okay, because we don't fully understand what's going on. So the way we understand constructs, we see constructs, they come and go, and they completely get annihilated, certain constructs, right? And because deep within, the search for self wasn't really looking for self, but really looking to validate an idea of what self is supposed to be. That's what we were actually doing. We were looking for validation. And when we see construct from direct experience, they come and go, they disintegrate. And this innate validation that we're seeking is we're looking for something that does not disintegrate. And that's why we sophisticatingly, appearingly, accept the idea that self is a construct, but not really. Okay, so then we hold the idea, or there's a false me that I present, or the false me that I hold, and then there's the real me that I have not yet discovered. Okay, I mean, there's a truth to that, but on the surface level, the very process of misunderstanding construct is still at play when we think that, oh, there's a real self. I gotta go find it. Right? Okay, let's say that is the wrong approach. Okay, let's say that is a wrong approach, and we'll explain why that is a wrong approach. And in explaining why that is a wrong approach, we'll get into self beyond opinion. Okay. don't forget, and that's the thing that makes us become discouraged on the path. We keep forgetting why we are there in the first place. And we have to constantly remind ourselves why we are there in the first place. Okay? It's the idea of sorry, you're probably very tired of me using this idea that that is found, the idea that the example that I'm using is not found in Buddhism, not that I've encountered it myself, but what I remember having encountered in Christianity, and the idea of what is prayer? What is prayer? Okay. And forget about what ends up being the philosophical and going deep into the realm of abstract, but very simply using the idea of if you pray, if the aim of prayer becomes so others can call me righteous, it's no longer prayer. You've forgotten the reason why of prayer. Okay. When we forget the reason why we're on the path, and it's easy for us to be diverted. It's easy for us to be discouraged. Okay. And there are certain there are certain experiences of feeling discouragement, which are actually positive signs. When the discouragement is not necessarily to give up the path altogether, to give up the quest altogether, but rather to be ready and courageous enough to take on completely new approach to continue. That you're discouraged with this approach, but it's not that you're giving up on the path, but you are mustering courage and energy to go in a different approach, to start brand new, fresh, brand new, because the aim of the path is still very important to you, and you're willing to take that risk of abandoning completely what seems to be not working so far, genuinely not working for you. Okay. All right. So in the same way that we are, by forgetting why we are on the spiritual path, we become discouraged, and we end up at best just put it on just for decoration. Just like in the example of prayer, you pray just so that people can look at you and have an idea in their minds that, oh, that's a righteous person. It's no longer about the true aim of prayer anymore. Okay, so in the same way, we put on the identity of being spiritual, looking to fulfill the aim of our fundamental being. Okay, in whatever ways that you can that can be described, that can be understood. Okay, that it becomes just decoration, no longer seeking the aim that got you there in the first place. Okay, that's why we have to keep remembering, especially even when you encounter something that in the beginning you know is what you're supposed to be doing, but because we've lost the reason why we are doing it, we become discouraged in it, and we don't see how it's working for us because we're not really applying because we're not really applying ourselves to it. Okay, so now back to construct. How did we end up saying construct? What was going on? Why did we end up with the word construct and then somehow ended up having two paths in front of us? What happened right before the two paths seemed to have appeared? So along the way, just like when you forget about spirituality and become discouraged, along the way we forgot what were we observing, what were we directly experiencing that made us say construct? And going into false and then true, we have taken a detour. Not even a detour. Detour usually, take this roundabout way to get to the destination. But we're definitely taking ourselves off, taking ourselves out of the road, taking ourselves off the road that will lead to where we were aiming for in the first place. So there was a sense of openness, and because of that measure of openness, we arrived at construct. And that is what was presented to us. Okay. Now, if this construct gives you two ideas, two experiences, I would say. One experience is a sense of, mere construct, where the sense of being defeated is not so much that leads you into the direction of false self, but rather being defeated in a sense of, the idea opposite to that, not being a construct. That idea, or the part of our psyche that was holding onto that, or it directly confronts the reality that it must let go of what was precious to it, not a construct. And that's the part of us that feels defeated, and that's good. Okay? And the sense of being defeated could be like a genuine sense of depression. Like when you read in the, however you want to call it, the story of how when the Buddha make that statement during his enlightening experience, where he was sort of like chastising some aspect of himself, was saying, no longer will you build this house. You can say a part that was happy in constructing the house would become depressed. That was the reason for my existence, just to build these houses. Now I'm not going to be able to build houses anymore. It's like someone who was very identified with something, and now they are no longer able to identify with that anymore. There is a sense of loss. There's a natural sense of depression, a sense of sadness, a sense of loss, a sense of missing. Something is going to be missing. Yes, something is going to be missing. But at the same time, there's also joy. Now you see just possibilities. And that's all you see, just possibilities. And because you see, and if you stay with that, just possibilities, just possibilities, just possibilities, and understand that whatever you're experiencing as a self is a construct, then you're open to, this construct is not working. And that means, because I understand it to be a construct, now, and remember, we are staying clear of false, okay? Actually, we're gonna do the opposite. Instead of saying the construct is the false, we're gonna say the construct is the only self. Whatever is a self is a construct. And if it is not a construct, there's no self there whatsoever. And we're not talking about the beautiful no self kind of thing, the shunyata kind of a phrase of no self. We're talking about nothing existing there. And we're not talking about the blissful nothing. We're talking about the complete annihilation, nothing there whatsoever. So when you are seeking to arrive at a truth, and you get a taste of the truth, and you phrase it, we put it within the context of construct. Okay, that means you found it. This is it. That's it. That's what the self is. That's what it's always been. That's what it always will be. Whenever there's a self, it's going to be a construct. Whether it is a suffering, conditioning self, it's a construct. Whether it is a blissful, enduring self, it is a construct. Because you've come into direct understanding of what makes a self. What is a self? Okay. And because it is a construct, that means many different factors come into being for it to be. And don't let this, whenever you feel that sense of the idea of false self creeping itself into your mind, push it away. Have a bat ready. Whenever you see its head, swing. Okay. So when I said to, when I began my essay, I am what I see in the eyes of others. That was, in a sense, in a way, I didn't phrase it that way. It was a glimpse into the self as being a construct. And because, unfortunately, as soon as that tiny spark of wisdom shown itself, my beautiful ignorance came in and said, "Let me take over. Let me take over. Okay, we got construct here, right? Okay, so self. So we are what others think of us. That's what we are. Okay, so and we go into the sense of well, I got to stop being what I got to stop being what others make me to be, but rather I will always continue to not exist, but rather I will continue this personality at a I'm going to throw in some Western psychology in there, at an unconscious level, seeking to validate and seeking to hold the construct by getting opinions. Okay. But that is merely a component of the self. Yes, you can have a sense of self that is entirely where we sort of split into a what you might call a mask, right? I think psychology has a beautiful use of that term, where we wear a mask. The mask is, this is what others want me to be. At least this is what I believe, I'm convinced what others expect of me. And I feel safe with them thinking of me this way. So we put on the mask. And because we understand that it is a mask at some level, then there is a confrontation with again, oh, that's not the real me, that's a false me. And there's the real me. The thing is, even though that might lead to some sort of healing, but it will be a superficial healing. When we arrive at self is a construct, we are forgetting that we are arriving at a truth. There is no such thing as a false me, and then we are holding it, and then there's a real me in the back of it. There's no such thing. But there is a me, an identity, which is constructed around the idea there's a false me that I present to others, and there's a real me that I'm holding behind. And that itself is a construct. Okay? That is a construct. What we have to become comfortable with and not see it as the way when because of and it's because of this thirst to exist. And then seeing constructs falling apart and no longer existing. We think we might think that the complexity of a self that is a construct might be as simple as that, as those constructs that we've encountered. And the thirst for continued existence it may not be, it comes into danger. Because if indeed, the way I understand construct from my experiences, having experienced annihilation, and then there is this thirst to continue within me, then that's why I will make myself misunderstand the idea of construct, thinking that I'm understanding it. Okay. What is my identity? What is the construct of me? It is composed simply when I say simply, I mean that's what it is, but we can simplify it. I mean, two very complex things that we are simplifying, that we are presenting, okay? That is, the wholeness of me is an idea that there's a false me that I present because I feel I need to do that. And there's the real me inside under the mask. Thinking that somehow the one behind the mask is the real me, and then the mask is the false me. And we ascribe only to the mask as the construct, forgetting that this is my identity. I am someone who is not fully known by others because I present them a mask for whatever psychological reason that I do it. And why do I do it? And one of the reasons, and it's in the email, is it's and again it's growing pain, where evolution designed this within us for whatever. And don't think of evolution as some guy over there who's having design ideas. Oh, let me try this, let me try that. But rather just the natural way of evolving because of circumstances that are also changing. Okay. So because of these things coming together, that's what we're calling evolution, for the survival, for the continuity, we developed a psychological need to be accepted because of the condition of our evolution. In order for us to continue, we need others. We live in culture, we live in society. And as a way to maintain society in a cohesive way, there has to be a sense of being accepted by others. Okay? And we dread the idea of being cast out. And the idea of being cast out it's in our genes. With that fear of being cast out is in our genes because it's the evolutionary process. Okay, the species will come to extinction if casting out becomes the norm. Okay, and not knowing this is driving us, and of course there are more metaphysical ways of presenting it, but it's calling it metaphysical, calling it scientific, biological. Just trying to explain something that our experience, okay? So don't get caught up on that's what those biologists say, it's not real, but that's the words for now in trying to explain what's going on, right? So because of this need to be accepted, because of this urge to be accepted, I guess the metaphysical way of equivalent of it is the urge of Tana, is the thirst to exist, thirst to continue, and biologists call it for the species to continue. Okay, because of this programming, it is this, or the conditioning is such that being accepted is necessary. Okay, so being accepted over time, and over time doesn't necessarily mean over millions of years. It could be just within your lifetime. It could be from the moment that you're born, it was just pure instinct of being accepted, decoded in your genes, and then and immediately upon receiving stimuli, it becomes, I want to be liked. I want to be liked. And we have different ways of expressing that. Sometimes we even want to be liked by making ourselves not liked. It's still the same. It's still the same drive. On the surface of it, we do things not to be liked, but when you think of it, it's those we identify. So those we do not identify with as belonging to, we want them not to like us. Those we identify with as belonging to, we want them to perceive us not liking those that is not us, so that we can be accepted by them. It's still that same function. Okay, we're saying, oh, I don't want to be liked. Okay, but it's still that same thing. Deep inside, there is an unconscious drive maybe, but by making myself not liked by society, I'm liked by my peers who don't like that. Okay. And we can't really escape it. And now, over years, over time, and just like this very basic biological, biological evolutionary thing becomes, eventually arrives at a place of dysfunction, where there's a specific way of being liked that we identify with. And because it is somehow connected to, this is how I'm going to survive. This is how I'm going to continue. This is how I avoid annihilation. I mean, we don't say that consciously, but unconsciously, that's what's going on. I'm avoiding annihilation by making myself liked in this particular way. Then whatever we feel fulfills that we become liked in that particular way, we'll find ourselves doing that. Why? Because we identify the self that we have constructed that we don't know that is constructed around being liked. And the opinions of others become very important to us. At least what we perceive as opinions of the opinions of others become very important to us. Having a sense of perceiving that. And I have to say, having a sense of perceiving that, because who really knows the opinions of others anyway? Even if someone outright tells you, that's my opinion of you, the person could be completely deluded themselves. That's what they think is their opinion of you, but they don't really know what their opinion of you is, and they think their opinion of you is what they're saying, which is really not their opinion of you. Okay. So the construct is that is what the self is made out of. That is what constitutes a self. And I'm going to phrase it this way. And be careful, okay? Our habit of understanding will seek to understand this, right? But I'm saying it just for the effect of the words and the way we understand the words. The self that is a construct is the only self and the true self. A self that is not a construct, that is a non-self, that is a false self. And what does that mean about, can I extract myself if the construct, and misunderstanding is going to try to understand that, right? Misunderstanding is going to try to understand that. If the self is a construct, and part of the construct is that opinions of others participate in the constructing of me, then I can never extract any sense of self that is not away from the opinions, from identifying myself in terms of opinions of others of who I'm supposed to be. I'll just put it very simply this way. Yes, the construct that is called yourself is constructed also of the opinions of others because of evolution, if you want to call it, because of the need of being accepted by others in some way or another. But the opinions of others is not the only component of the construct of self. It is simply a component, and it's not an absolute necessity for the construct of self to continue. Okay. And I'm gonna go into Abhidhamma. Sorry. I'm going to go into reference text. I said I was not going to be too philosophical, but it's a good point to bring it here. In the Abhidhamma, there's a very sort of like very simplistic, not, I mean, simplistic in terms of not very long, even though the statement needs several volumes to unpack, but it's presented in a very simple way. What is a self? What is the definition of a person? It is a composite of any of it is a composite of one or any combination of the 5 parts. That's what a self is. So it's a composite of what? Of any one or any of a combination of the 5 parts that makes up a person. Okay. And these parts some can play a major role in the construct of the person, some may play a very little role, and some may not even play a role at all. Okay. Now, when these 5 parts are themselves composites collected from misunderstanding, then the entire construct is a big mess of misunderstanding moving forward. So you can have a composite of self made up of ignorance. Or you can have a composite of self made up of wisdom. Whether it's wisdom, whether it's ignorance, it's a composite. Okay. It's a construct. There is, and I'm going to jump into I'm going to jump to not Nagarjuna, Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Sorry, jumping. I went from quoting Christianity, quoting Buddhist, and I'm quoting Bhagavad Gita. Not exactly quoting, no, paraphrasing. A beautiful phrase that Krishna told Arjuna when Arjuna was becoming very despondent and becoming basically the thirst, the fear of annihilation was coming up. And to assuage Arjuna, Krishna said, there has never been a time that you did not exist. And there will never be a time when you will cease to exist. Okay? And what is it that has always existed? What is the you that will always exist in the future? A construct. As a samsaric being, you're a construct. As a nirvanic being, you're a construct. Okay? So it's not that construct is a dirty word that should make you immediately seek a real self to replace the construct self. But rather, it's gospel, it's good news. That's what the self is. It's a construct. Now, I'm open and unlimited possibilities. There are so many things I can be in samsara and so many things I can be outside of samsara. And they're all constructs, and it will always be construct. It's not that nirvana is a state where you've reached where there's no longer a construct. That's not what nirvana is. Okay. And the opposite is not also where it would be samsara is the self as a construct. Okay. So that instinct, that openness in your observation, in your experience, that made you say construct, spark of wisdom. Don't turn it into a demon. Okay, it's a beautiful revelation. Now, whatever you are, however long it appears that you are that, it is mere construct. It's constantly open to transformation, constantly open to transformation. And this is where I borrow a term from modern, from psychology, Western psychology, and I say that whatever we are experiencing, and forgive me if this leads you to think that, I found the real self, it's the mind. That's not where I'm leading with this, okay? Whatever we are experiencing, as we are experiencing, there's a sense of not being able to do anything about it. It's coming from a deep conviction for it to continue. And this may not seem like an example to actually validate what I'm saying, because for the most part, us modern people don't believe in those kinds of things. But when you will experience that, then you will validate it for yourself. As a matter of fact, you may be forced to do that to validate for yourself. The day when you walk on water. The reason that you don't see yourself walking on water is because we are holding on to a conviction that water is not something you walk on. And somehow when you're able to suspend that conviction, you suspend that conviction, you will find yourself walking on water. Okay. And because of that, somehow coming in with strange conclusions on my part, whatever is going on, and I suspect you've tasted that. You've had a moment in your life where you've tasted that. When you completely let go of something, that is completely let go of the conviction that is holding you to something, you find yourself no longer experiencing it. But the habit of holding onto it immediately comes back and grabs it before it goes away. Okay. Yeah. Because there's a conviction, unconscious conviction, that I am what I'm the me that is moving through time and space is a composite of what I believe others want me to be. Then I continue, the sense of self continues to move through space and time. That's what it is. It is the opinion of others. And that's what a self is, and it's a legitimate self. These are the component constructs of it, opinions of others. It's a legitimate self. But when you understand, self is construct, I can take that component out, opinions of others, for the construct of self to continue. But first you have to find out what opinions do you have, yours, and the opinions that are opinions of others. I would say along the way, as a psychological therapy, you may have to undo, that's opinions of others, and that you need to get rid of. And that's along the way, but don't think of it as the entire path itself, stripping yourself of opinions of, stripping your identity, your selfhood of opinions of others. That's not the entirety of the path. Okay, that would be a waste of time. Yes, there are, in order for us to make progress, to go forward, there's probably a good chunk of identity that is opinions of others that we have to discover and then discard. But don't think of it as the entirety of the path in order for you to reach enlightenment. Okay, it will be a waste of time. But rather keep connecting to that sense of freedom that is another construct of self that we taste, where in terms of ultimate nature of self, that complete true freedom to just be, that complete sense of just pure potentiality. And when we taste it, when we touch it, and we find ourselves incapable of truly putting it into words, not because we just dumb and just don't know, don't have the vocabulary for it, like I have sometimes, but rather, even if I knew every single word, every single construct that there is, the experience itself is just beyond, what's that word? I just lost it. You know what I'm talking about. A state of meditation that you want to reach.
Conceptual.
What was that?
Conceptual.
Conceptual, thank you very much. Okay, so you're following what I was saying, you went off falling asleep. Okay, the very experience itself, the concepts have a limit. They don't cover the entirety of existence. Okay, they're just a little part of existence. Okay, and when we are immersed in concepts, when we come out of it, the way to describe what we are experiencing outside of the realm of concepts, we will find ourselves incapable of describing using concepts, using conceptual terms. So there is an experience of self, of conceptually speaking, as a way of beginning to go on the journey, we will say is complete freedom, complete potential, pure potentiality. Okay. And when your mind is thinking, going because of the habit, oh yeah, pure potentiality is, and you use another concept and you fix it on that concept, you lost it. Okay. Just like you arrive at concept, construct, and then you go in the wrong direction. Oh, there's a false self and there's a real self. Let me look for the real self now. The false self is what I have to get rid of. Okay. All right. One last thing before we go into question. I mean, I've said it already. Yeah, I think I've said already. There is no self other than a self that is a construct. And that itself is not something that we can ever be rid of. Okay? You can never be rid of it. So if you want to, if the habit of holding on to something is so strong that is too uncomfortable to the point where it's not leading you to continue the path towards transformation, but rather uncomfortable where you will leave the path behind, then if you want to identify the self with something, just think of pure potential. And don't let the mind go into conceptualizing what pure potential is supposed to be. Okay. All right. So if you suffer the disease that I suffer, that my sense of self is the opinion it is weaved by the opinions of others. That is what you are. That is yourself. That is the constructed self that you have. But you're not stuck with it. That's the good news, because it is a construct. If the opinions of others that you are using to weave the self is not helping you go anywhere, then either find better opinions or don't have opinions. in the fabric of yourself. Okay. All right. That's the last thing I want to say about that. Now, lay it on me. What are your questions? And I hope, and that was the hope, that practical use can be, you can get practical use from this. Because every day you are constructing yourself unconsciously. Since it's happening anyway, and since most of the unconscious thing that is moving this along is not where you want to be, then you better start consciously participating in it, because it's gonna go on whether you consciously participate or not. It's not gonna take a break or stop happening because we decide to ignore it.
Can I ask a question, Phuntsok?
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to have to listen to this again because it feels so rich and subtle, and there's like so many.
I was trying to avoid that.
Yeah, it's deep for sure. And I can acknowledge my incapacity to take it all in. Well, I guess I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is like just a sincere question about your belief in the ability to walk on water, which inside my cells, it's like my body wants to believe it so much. And I just wanted to like confirm with what you said as truth rather than an example.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then my second question is there, so like when we have this option, this freedom of transforming our construct of self, what is the role of identification happening in that too?
Oh, nice. Let's go to the story of the Buddha saying, sort of like confronting a part of himself, saying, "You will no longer build this house." Okay. Think of the self that we have being building this time as the house, right? So when you say you will no longer build this house, it's not you will no longer build a self, but rather you will no longer build this kind of self anymore. Okay. So the process that makes us in this, with the example of tonight's topic, that makes us identify as the who that I am, the who that I identify with is what the opinions of others of me is. That mechanism of identification is not going to have to change in order for different identity to replace the identity that we have. Okay, that's why sometimes I refer to the process of identification as a power, as a very, 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 very important power. Okay. And it takes place where they interchange, where they switch places. But the house, when it is constructed, that is the self, when it is constructed, it will endure. It will have the appearance of enduring through time until the natural conditions come for it to fall apart. Right? That is that idea of what of my identity. Right? And And what's holding the house together? There's an unconscious part, and there's a conscious part. The conscious part look towards outside for validation, to feed to the unconscious part, so the unconscious part can continue to participate. And the unconscious part keeps sending images to the conscious part, saying, okay, these are the validation to look for. Okay, so and I'm using Western language to explain it, okay? Conscious and unconscious. In Buddhism, no such presentation is made. There's no such presentation of conscious and unconscious participation of anything, okay? But it's for me, at least, because of Western mindset, it's easier for me to understand that way. So bear with me, okay? So I cannot walk on water because of the identity that I've given water and the identity that I've given myself and their way, how they relate. That is a house that is already built. And because it is built, unconsciousness sends message to consciousness, this is what you need to validate. And consciousness seeks experiences to validate that. See, this is my identity. This is who I am. How would you call that? A not able to walk on water self. That's who I am. I am a not able to walk on water. Okay. And when consciousness and subconsciousness no longer collaborate, when instead consciousness seeks validation opposite to what subconsciousness is asking it to validate, then they start to have conflict with each other. And that's when we have flashes of experience of miracles. Did that happen? And the way to make sure this continues to take place is to first, consciousness has to keep bringing up to consciousness the memory of that miraculous event, to sort of begin to undermine the conditioned unconscious. Don't think of the consciousness as a bad guy who's there just to destroy you. It's just doing its job. It was asked to send message to validate, okay? It's just doing its job. When consciousness keeps feeding not validation to what subconsciousness is asking to validate, then they will enter into periods where they will test each other. Okay. And at one moment, maybe a split second, you find yourself able to suspend the conviction, the unconscious conviction of the self construct as not able to walk on water identity. You suspend that, that's no longer there, and you're able to test. Now you're open to a different kind of identity of self. And you step on water, and maybe for half a second, you experience a self as able to walk on water self. Okay. And that will undermine, because when we suspend the identity of self being not able to walk on water self, it's not that we destroyed it, we just put it aside for a little while. And it has a strong habit energy trying to push it back into the forefront of what identity is supposed to be. So for that split moment, we have a memory that we're able to go back to. Okay, so how is What is the process of identity? The process of holding an identity? It is, and remember, this is very fluid, okay? Make yourself perceive. That's the process of identity. Make yourself perceive. First, you doubt, you're able to suspend a little bit, and you make yourself perceive, oh, look, I'm walking on water. Okay? You perceived it, you cannot deny it. And that is part of the mechanism of building the house, building an identity. Okay? And even the identity, which is the topic of tonight, I am the opinions of others of me. Even that was, we did it through the process of perception. I am perceiving myself arising simultaneously, it seems, with an opinion of another. So I form and I solidify a conscious conviction. Oh, that's what I am. And then that perception, that acceptance of that perception as being true becomes identity. I don't know if the answer is more complicated than the question or the attempt at the question. Did I answer both sides of the question?
Yeah, I think that was helpful. You put them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the personal thing, yes, the first part about my personal thing. My personal thing is I am doubting the self that is the self that cannot walk on water. And every once in a while, when I feel, and of course I'm using walking on water as an example, it could be other things too, right? Whatever appears to be impossible. Yeah, I test these things. I test what could be a perception of the what we already have concluded to be impossible. And we have to do it. We have to do it in measured steps. Don't tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to suspend the identity of not being able to walk on water B in the middle of the ocean, when the conviction that you are not able to walk on water is very strong. But you could test it on something that you don't have your life at stake. Okay. Then later on, you can, I mean, that's what, not that as an encouragement, but rather, or not as an encouragement, not as a discouragement. That's what the path of Tantra is about. At least within the Buddhist worldview. It is making you deliberately glimpse at the fluidity of identity. And especially the identities that it seems like this is definitely the me. And to directly experience experiences that make you at least begin to doubt that. And this is the encouragement and discouragement part. Things that are taboo are not inherently taboo. And don't take that into your world and say, well, it's not taboo. It's not inherently taboo. I can do it. The thing is, there's a conviction already within there, sitting there that says that's taboo. And you're just perceiving yourself doing taboo. And it's not helping. But you have to first arrive at suspending of it, whatever it is the taboo as not taboo. Like walking on water, you have to suspend that conviction, not able to walk on water. You have to suspend it. And then you're able to replace it with, I'm able to walk on water. Okay. And somebody can use, what about somebody who's having a delusion? Well, that's exactly what you just said it. It's a delusion. It's not a unconscious conviction. That's why it doesn't work for delusions. You could say there is suspending the unconscious conviction, and there is denying the existence of the conscious conviction. The denying of the conscious conviction is delusion. That's interesting, huh? You will not have a direct perception of what is referred to as the true nature of reality if all you're doing is denying. Even though it seems that's what they're telling us to do. Only seems like it. That's not what they're saying to do. And it's a very strong habit. You have to first acknowledge there is this very strong habit of being convinced that I cannot walk on water, and it's there. I'm not going to just deny it and then no, pretend it's not there and then walk on water. Maybe we can have another example that's more immediate, other than, I don't know, how many of you are planning to walk on water? That's in your agenda. Maybe it's not even something that you have any conviction that is even for you to even contemplate to start doing. It's not important to you. But there's something similar to walking on water that we are having, an identity.
What about the experience of feeling worthy if you don't have it self that
yes. Oh yes. That is definitely part of that. And I would say that, thank you very much. I would say that is the more immediate kind of a feeling that we have. That's it's the sense of I'm not worthy of it. And I know people who sincerely, and that comes from misunderstanding, of course, who sincerely believe they're not worthy of enlightenment. As though enlightenment is, I don't know, what would it be? It's like a gift that somebody's giving you to see whether or not you're worthy of that gift. And they sincerely believe that they're not worthy of enlightenment. And I think a lot of us have that. I'm not worthy of seeing emptiness directly. Oh, that's for, pure people. I'm not pure. Enlightenment, oh, that's for good people. I'm not good. I'm not worthy of it. And it goes down to very immediate things like, I'm not worthy of having success, whatever is success for you. And that because that is a conviction that we are holding unconsciously, that is the construct of yourself. And that's what we are moving forward in time and space. And thank goodness it's a construct. We can get rid of certain components and add other components. And that's what we'll always continue to do.
Phuntsok, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm interested in thinking about like something I've been thinking about is like this idea of like when we experience art, particularly like performing arts, but also like any other kind of art, there's a feeling of like a shared self, or like if we go to a movie and then we like we identify with like the protagonist, and it's like we share in the self, like any good actor or musician kind of confronts us with their self, but then it's kind of like if it works, we have this feeling of like, a teacher will do this too, that this is our self, that it's like because they're making something resonate within us where we go, that is who I am. Like that they're saying like, this is who I am. And that we as audience say like, that is who I am. And that then almost like the audience shares a self. And that then the purpose of good art a lot of times I feel like is to give us a transformation. Like there's a transformation in the art, so that it starts out, it's like, this is who I am. And then the audience says, this is who I am. And then the character kind of undergoes a transformation and discovers a bigger or a different or a more refined version of their self. And that we get to participate in that journey and transformation and arrive at like, discover a bigger, more profound sense of self.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. This experience is an experience that we've perceived, directly experiencing. And we have to remember this experience whenever a sense of the self being limited and confined, when we are confronting with that as being the danger of the nature of self, being confined, being limited. And if you had this experience, remember it and let it remind you, not that you're touching another kind of self, but rather you're touching the self as being something very fluid. There you are before you went to the theater, there was this idea, this is myself. And then now you're in the theater, or you're encountering the art, and there's a sense of, oh, I am this self. It doesn't mean now that self was the false self and this is the real self. It's just because of the fluidity of identity, it can be, yes, this is myself. Yeah, this is who I am. And this is true. And look, this is who I am. This is true too. Neither one of them is some ultimate real self, but rather giving you a direct taste of the fluidity of self. And thank you for that example. And I think people have genuine experiences where they come to that conclusion, whether it's while they were meditating or doing some sort of psychedelics, something like that. And they have an experience of the self no longer being confined to here, whether the sense of the self being this, and they come back and say, oh, this is the false self, and that was the real self. And what do they do when they say, oh, that's the real self, this is the false self, and this is the self that they're forced to continue to live with? Then they're no longer able to really function in society because they're denying this. They're denying this, and they keep remembering this, even though this is not the experience at the moment. But what this experience should get, the conviction that this experience of this and that to tell you, oh, look how flexible the self is. Look how elastic it is. That's what you're really experiencing. Not that some real self came up and then some false self was thrown away. And I have to say, there are some people who come from that experience where they felt that, oh, that was a self, and they say, oh, that's the real self. And they become very depressed. They live the rest of their lives depressed because they can't go back to that feeling again, because they're living in denial of this actual experience that's going on right here. This. Remember, there is no real self other than the construct. And that's not a bad word. And it's because of that, you can go in the theater, oh, this is me. And then in the theater, oh, this is me. And you come out, oh, this is me. Okay. You're witnessing something incredibly, wow, this is incredible. All right, sorry, I've held you hostage for too long. It's way past my bedtime. So if there aren't any more questions, and thank you guys for those questions. That was very nice. And I appreciated that you always bring in the question that makes us see the immediate application of what we are talking about. Because I'm very bad at that, sorry. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is very applicable. And then you say, that was so abstract, what you just said. And one last thing I want to say. And this is something that we all know at some deep level to be true. When we expect, and this is coming, and when we are in relationship with others, whatever that relationship may be, okay? And there are aspects of each other's personality that seems to come into clash, and those two aspects can't share the same space. Sometimes can't share the same relationship. Don't let that be a denial of it's happening, first of all, and the other parts where there's compatibility also. And if you appreciate the parts of the compatibility enough, that should give you us with this understanding, oh, this sense of identity, I'm not stuck to it, and that person is not stuck to it. We can work at either me accepting the identity I cannot accept can change to I accept. The identity of the other cannot accept can change to they accept. Or the identity can shift where that element is just not, it's not relevant for the beauty of the relationship. Okay. Or if it's very, 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 very important, okay, no. Or very difficult to disassociate, to drop that conviction of identity, and you also acknowledge that, and you know, you don't have to be stuck together, but relationships are rare and beautiful opportunities. Whenever we have them, we should cherish them. Okay, all right. So definitely I'm gonna let you go now. We're gonna do a 2-minute meditation. You're gonna do the same meditation that I have a feeling that we're gonna continue to, we're gonna stay with this meditation for a little bit longer, okay? Okay, so remember the moment when you were meditating, remember the feeling of it. Let the recollection of it be so vivid that you begin to taste the meditative state again. Remember, I felt in the body and begin to feel the body again, re-experiencing that state. Remember how your breath behaved, and just the mere recollection, you begin to taste it again. Remember how it was energetically emotionally, mentally. And perhaps already you're hearing or seeing or smelling or touching. So keep your attention in the direction of that. Let it take you, let it pull you deeper. Take a nice deep breath to stabilize, just one. In through the nose, out the mouth. In that, see us sitting next to each other in a circle, forming a circle. Whatever comes to mind, that's exactly it. And in the center, there is a composite us. Like as if someone from outside would say, oh, that's them. Give that them, the us, a sense of being a self. And it's glowing. It is a composite of all the beautiful qualities that we share, all the understandings that we share. And it's glowing with light, not necessarily because it is pure and we are impure, but those very elements that we are, each one of us is contributing, and the common, that's what's causing the lightness, the brightness, the radiance. And without feeling a sense of, I'm going to be annihilated, just focus on that sense of us, us, us. And as we continue, that sense of that composite us expands, sends rays of light to each one of us, and we feed it with our light. It feeds us with its light, combined light, as though all of us is giving each one of us light from the totality of us. And we begin to glow. It expands until the appearance of our individuality disappears, and there's only this us. And it continues to grow, expand. And as it continues to expand, it takes on the environment. It takes on eventually the entire earth, all species, all life. This is us. And that fear of being annihilated is completely meaningless in this experience. And in that, feel, hear, see the state. And think of the combined understanding that we have, combined gift of us, and dedicate it to whatever you feel a genuine concern for. And get ready to arise from the meditation. That's us, shrinks back, until our individual appearances resurfaces, and that us remains in the center. And then it dissolves by sending rays of itself into each one of us. And each one of us become that composite us. Gewa di kyo kun sunam yeshe tsogzo shin sunam yeshe lechung we gamba kunyi topar sho. Since it was the Dalai Lama's birthday, Kanri rawe korwe shinkam dir pendam dewa malu jongwe cherished wang tenzen gatsui shabe site badru tangyoro chi. The joy of the experience of this meditation, of seeing yourself abiding in it. Now make the conscious decision to arise in through the nose and out the mouth. Take a nice deep breath. And deliberately, consciously, joyfully reconnect with your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Thank you, Phuntsok.